You are listening to PR Radio Station of America.
The announcement came in sharp language from the Department of Education, signaling a confrontation that had been brewing for months. At the center of the dispute are policies in New York City, Chicago, and Fairfax County that let transgender students use restrooms and locker rooms aligned with their gender identity. For federal officials, those policies were framed as violations of Title IX, the civil rights law that bans sex discrimination in schools receiving federal funding. Acting Assistant Secretary Craig Traynor warned the districts in letters that unless they reversed course, millions in grants would be withheld. The deadline passed on a Tuesday. None of the districts agreed to make the demanded changes. Instead, each doubled down, saying their policies protect student dignity and comply with existing state laws. The Department of Education followed through the next day, announcing the schools would be cut off from magnet program funding. This was not only about restrooms, but about control over how civil rights protections are defined and enforced in education. For families, the news landed as more than a policy dispute. It was an immediate financial hit to schools already stretched. Teachers, students, and parents suddenly had to consider what programs would disappear when the money stopped flowing. The funding losses were spelled out with precision: $3.4 million in Fairfax, $5.8 million in Chicago, and $15 million in New York City. These numbers are more than figures on paper. They represent salaries, programs, and opportunities. In Chicago, school leaders warned that cuts would undermine magnet schools that serve students from historically disadvantaged neighborhoods. The funds often cover enrichment such as robotics clubs, science labs, and after-school tutoring. New York City officials described a bleak scenario where thousands of students could lose summer learning programs or access to technology upgrades. They argued the punishment fell hardest on underserved communities. Fairfax, though smaller, voiced the same concern. The district highlighted that grant funding supports language programs and specialized curricula designed to prepare students for college. The loss of those funds, they said, means fewer resources for children who need them most. Department spokesperson Julie Hartman dismissed the criticism, saying parents deserve schools that follow the law, not what she called ideological indoctrination. The sharp contrast between federal officials and local leaders showed how deeply divided the nation remains over education policy. Beyond bathrooms and locker rooms, the administration targeted athletics. Both New York and Chicago were ordered to declare that male students could not compete in female sports programs. In Chicago, officials faced another demand: to end a tutoring initiative aimed at helping Black students. Federal officials labeled the program discriminatory, though educators argued it was designed to close achievement gaps. District lawyers pushed back. Chicago's counsel argued the department failed to show any evidence of harm. New York City warned that pulling enrichment grants would damage entire communities, not just individual students. Advocates for civil rights said the demands amounted to forcing schools to erase protections for vulnerable groups. They argued that true equity requires targeted support for students who face barriers in education. Meanwhile, supporters of the administration cheered the move as a defense of fairness in sports and privacy in restrooms. The clash revealed competing visions of equality, one rooted in inclusion, the other in biology-based definitions of sex. The issue quickly spilled into New York City's mayoral race. At an unrelated event, Mayor Eric Adams said he wanted to review whether the policy allowed boys and girls to share facilities at the same time. His remarks drew swift condemnation. Democratic nominee Zohran Mamdani called them completely out of step with the city's values, accusing Adams of wavering in a moment when clarity was needed. Adams later clarified, saying he did not control the state's human rights law, which already protects transgender students' access. Still, he insisted the city would fight to keep its funding. Critics argued his comments weakened the city's stance against the federal government, while allies defended him as simply acknowledging public concerns. The tension highlighted how national culture wars filter down into local politics. As parents, educators, and politicians sparred, the central question remained: should federal officials be able to use funding as leverage to enforce their interpretation of civil rights law? The mayor's office said it was reviewing legal options, including lawsuits. With deadlines passed and grants suspended, the standoff moved into the courts. New York City prepared a challenge, while Chicago and Fairfax explored their own legal paths. For students, the consequences are immediate. Teachers worry about canceled programs, fewer extracurricular activities, and shrinking opportunities. Parents fear their children's futures will become collateral damage in a political battle. Advocates say the funding cuts undermine trust in public education. They argue that schools should not be forced to choose between federal money and inclusive policies that affirm students' identities. Administration officials counter that they are enforcing the law and protecting fairness. They maintain that parents expect schools to operate on definitions of male and female rooted in biology, not identity. As the legal and political fights unfold, one fact remains. Tens of millions of dollars intended for classrooms are now being withheld. The debate has become a test case for how far federal power can reach into local school policy, and its outcome may reshape education across the nation. This is the end of that story. Now tell me in the comments, what's your story? I'll read out the most interesting ones in the next video. Do not forget to hit a like button and subscribe. See you.